Everybody, and welcome. We are ready to start. This week is obviously in the one end it's Parshat Tisa, and in the other end it is the Wednesday, 24 hours before Purim. Tonight's learning will be dedicated in memory of Chagit Chatun Bad Rechani, who is the Shloishim, the 30 days of your since passing. She is the mother of Shai over here, Shai Bastli, and we're going to learn. And thank you, Shai, for bringing some wafers, and soon we're going to have some tea. And in Iran, actually, you know what? I'm going to make a bracha. They say it is I like the chocolate. They say that there is a custom to make blessings in honor of somebody's. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam bo'odei min hamezainis. Very good.
We support Israeli economy.
כחול לבן.
הרב זה מזונות?
Amen. Okay, let's get to the point. So this week's Parsha, Tisa, is a very, I'm going to be just bold. It's a very difficult Parsha. And why is it a difficult Parsha? Because it shares a very difficult story. And the story what this week's Parsha shares is a story which has to do with something that we are dealing with until today. And even if we don't realize that we are dealing with that until today, God himself, in response to that story which happened, he said that this is actually something he's always going to consider and take an account. He uses the words, Ubeyom pogdi upakadeti aleyem chatatam. When I bring punishment for their sins in the future, I will always take the golden calf into consideration. This is obviously the story of the golden calf, Cheta Egel. Briefly, we are just 40 days since the Torah was given, which is not more than a little over 3 months since the Jewish people left Egypt. 40 days after the revelation at Sinai, they saw the splitting of the sea earlier. They were provided with heavenly food, with manna. This is people who live a full life with divine providence, taking them out from the worst of conditions in Egypt and giving them the Torah at Sinai. They saw it in their own eyes. They didn't have to believe much. They saw. They know what God is. They know what Moses means to God and to them. And Moses went up after the revelation at Sinai. He went up for 40 days to get that set of tablets organized for display and receive from God the information, how to observe this Torah. He gave us a Torah, he gave us a number of commandments. What is it all about? What does it mean, remember the day of Shabbat? What do I have to remember? He didn't tell us. He only said, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat HaKadosh. What do I do? How much do I drink in order to remember? Over a cup of wine, over a plate of cholent, chamin. What exactly am I meant to do on Shabbat? This information was all given to Moses during the 40 days while he was in the mountain. And somehow there was a miscalculation. Everybody knows what a miscalculation is, right? We all have from time to time miscalculations. Moses gave them a time when he will be back. But that time depended whether you count the day that he left to, or you started counting from the next day. And that was the miscalculation. He meant starting once I go up to the mountain. They thought it means from the night before. And when they looked at the clock, plus, obviously, there's no scene, especially in the scope of the golden calf, that doesn't come by being instigated by the evil inclination and the Yetzirah, the powers of Klippa, which is being called in the Kabbalah. Some call him Satan, some call him Yetzirah, some call him Malach HaMavet. The Talmud, the one says an expression that's the same figure. First is Yetzirah. He serves as an evil inclination, enticing you to do something wrong. Then he goes up to God and he starts prosecuting you. Then it's becoming Satan, Satan from the word Hastin. And then God says, okay, in that case, go take your soul away, because Malach HaMavet. But it's the same idea. So you have the image of Moses somehow is being displayed in the air as kind of lying in a coffin, dead. It's over. And when people see it, it only confirms their imaginary thoughts that Moshe is gone, and they're looking to make another motion, which ends up to be an idol. What I'm not going to discuss tonight, and we discussed in previous years probably, I'm sure, is why was it so necessary to have a Moses, and why did it have to be in the image of the calf, and how was Aaron involved in that? After all, he was calling for the gold to be thrown into the fire, and where was everybody else? This is a separate discussion. What I would like tonight, just to concentrate on one important factor which the Torah describes in regard to the golden calf. Let me ask you a question first. Moses, does anybody doubt Moses believe in God, trust in God? No. He's still on the mountain. He's still on the mountain. And he gets informed. If you want to look it up, look in the Chumash on page 530, verse 7, or in the English 531, verse 7. I'm going to read for you just two verses. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe, God said to Moses, Lech reit, go down from the mountain. Ki shichet amcha asher eleta mieretz Mitzrayim. For you people that you have brought up from Egypt have become corrupt. What happened? God tells them. They're still on the mountain. God tells them. Saru ma'er min haderech asher tzivitim. Asu lahem egel masecha. They have quickly abandoned the way which I commanded them, and they made themselves a golden calf, a molten calf. Vayishtachavu lo, vayizbechu lo. They bowed down to it. They offered sacrifices to it. And not only that, vayomru, and they said to that golden calf, Eile lokecha Yisrael, these are you gods of Israel, asher elucha meretz Mitzrayim, who have brought you up from the land of Egypt. God tells him, Moses is not down there, Moses is on the mountain. But God is able to see, right? So he saw it happening. So he lets Moses know what happened. And he tells Moses, listen, this is a very stubborn nation. He tells them in verse 10, don't try to pray. I want to display my anger. Va'achalem, as you see on verse 10. What is achalem? Kilui. I am going to annihilate them. We will start a new people with you, a new family. But I have a plan. This is what I want to do. What does Moshe respond? Oh, wait, God forbid. Vayichal Moshe, Pnei Hashem Elokov. He pleaded with God. Lama Hashem yechere apcha be'amecha? Why would you be so angry? Imagine tomorrow morning, verse 12, he says the New York Times is going to have front page that God who took them out from Egypt killed them in the desert. What kind of name are you going to have? Your name is going to be desecrated, as if that's the worst, the New York Times. No. If I would be Moses, I would tell God, don't do it, because how would you kill people? But Moses is concerned about Hashem's glory and how people are going to look at it, what Egypt is going to say. Also a discussion for itself. Every passage of the year is loaded with insight and commentary. And he brings up Abraham and Isaac. You gave them your word that you're going to increase their descendants like the stars of the sky and give them the land. No. Moses takes the Luchot on verse 15. Vayifed, vayered Moshe min ha'ar. Moshe goes down the mountain. Ushnei luchot ha'idot beyado. And the two luchot is in his hands. He goes down. He meets his student Yeshua. The ear noise. Here comes the most dramatic verse. Verse 19 is the peak of the drama. On next page, 534. Verse 19 on top. Vayehi. כאשר קרב אל המחנה, when Moses drew closer to the camp, וירא את העגל ומחולות, he saw the calf and the dances, ויחרף משה, Moshe became angry, וישלך מידיו את הלוחות, and he threw the tablets from his hands, וישבר אותם תחת ההר, and he shattered them at the foot of the mountains. Question. What happened to Moses? God tells them, this is what they did. They made a golden calf. I am angry. What does Moses say? Come on. So, Achmunas, a little mercy. Remember that a great Zayda, Abraham, and if not Abraham, remember Isaac. If not Isaac, remember Yaakov. Using every connection in order to bring about forgiveness. He comes down, he sees it, he can't control himself. Boom. I don't understand. Moses, if you trust God, I'm not looking for an answer. If you trust God, it's only a question to provoke your mind. It's not a question that needs an answer, because there is no answer. If you trust God and you believe in Him, so then the moment He tells you that they don't deserve to have the luchot, take it, put it back, as they say in good English, give back the keys, and say, here it is. It's not for them. It seems like in the story, the way the story develops, it seems that when God tells them, kind of questions how certain that is, so he's asking for forgiveness. And he still hopes to give them the luchot, even God tells them they messed up badly. When he sees it, then he realizes, no, they don't deserve of the luchot. God's information is not enough for a believer like Moses to decide and realize that this is not for them. And if you think that even when they misbehave, they still deserve the luchot, like you told God, forgive them. So what happens now that suddenly you can't forgive them? What changed? So you're going to come intellectually, and as they say, from a legal point of view, they can say, listen, we have a rule, Torah is not in heaven. In order to judge, in order to facilitate judgment and punishment, the judge has to be able to see or to hear at least from witnesses. God can tell me from today to tomorrow, we don't rely, we trust God, but we are not forced to rely on divine messages when it comes to facilitate legal consequences done in this world. By the way, that's also recorded in Jewish law. If a rabbi, a sage says, I had a heavenly voice who told me I should follow this ruling, we tell him, keep yourself with your heavenly voices. We are not relying on heavenly voices. We are people who received the Torah with a tradition, and this is what we are commanded to follow. And here it seems that Moshe is obviously, no one questions Moshe's belief in Hashem. And yet somehow, and the Medrash actually points it out. There's a Midrash which says when the story gets further discussed in Parshat in Chumash Dvarim, so the Medrash actually says, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Moshe, לא היית מאמין לי שעשו להם עגל? שנאמר, סרו מהר מן הדרך אשר ציוויתים. The God actually complained to Moses about it. You didn't trust me? Why did you have to come down? Why did you have to wait until you get all the way down there in order to express your frustration and break the luchot? These are the questions. One of the classic commentators that we have printed in our Chumashim lived 450 years, close to 500 years ago, was a rabbi which is known as Rabbi Ovadia Sforna. Sforna is one of the Italian sages and commentators of the Torah that we have in print. Somebody was locked out there. Want to try to let it in? Sorry. You just unlocked the... So the Sforno, the Bavadi of Sforno, he comes and he says, very simple. He said he takes one word in the verse, the dramatic verse 19, he highlights one word. Let's read it together. Vayehi, and it was, Kasher Karav el HaMachaneh, when Moses came close to the camp. Vayav, and he saw et ha'egel. What's the egel? The golden calf. Umecholot, what's machol? He saw the dancing. Vayicharaf Moshe. Moshe got angry. You know what the Sforno says? God never told him there was dancing. God told him there was an egel. There was a golden calf. And Moses comes down and he sees not only did they sin with the golden calf, they are celebrating their sin. There is mecholot. There is a whole dance around it. Yes. Mecholot. We know what mecholot means in Hebrew. Mecholot means dancing. Simcha. You enjoy, you're happy with performing an Aveira. This is not going to work. In other words, it's possible for a person momentarily, temporarily, to stumble in sin. Everybody stumbles. You trip, you get up. But you know it's a trip. You tripped. You don't lie in the, they say, when somebody holds a trade bone in his mouth and he sucks on it, is worse than just eating a little piece of chazra. You ate, and then you regret probably that you ate it. But to sit there and go, c'est good. The licking it, the sucking on it, the indulging in it. That's the problem. Zabaya. What's the mecholot? What is the dancing? God did not tell them there is dancing. By the way, the same idea is written by the Halshich. The Alshich was the famous Moshe Alshich. He was from the great rabbis of Kabbalists of Tzfat. Close to 500 years ago, at the same time, the Bet Yosef, there was the Alshich. Got a book called Torah Moshe. And he writes the same idea. He says even more. I tried to write down what he said. He says, when it comes to serve Hashem, if you remember in the book of Deuteronomy, there is the admonishment for not serving God. So what does it say? Tachat asher lo avadeta et Hashem Elokecha, you did not serve Hashem besimcha ubetuv levav. Serving Hashem is not enough to serve Hashem. You have to serve Hashem with simcha, with gladness, with happiness, with joy. This is in doing mitzvot. violating mitzvot. So he says the one who sins and then regrets and he feels bad, like most Jews always feel when they get stuck in a Avera, right? How many times I have people knocking on the door in the middle of the day? Arav, yesh tefillin ledaka. When the guy comes in, he wants to put on tefillin. I don't ask him. I don't want to ask him what was the mitzvah who led to that mitzvah. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. I can see Baruch Hashem, Am Yisrael. They know, it looks for the tzedakah box, puts in $10. I know exactly where he's coming from. I don't have to ask him no questions. But Baruch Hashem, that's a yid. That kept on boiling. That's the nature. To regret, to feel bad. So the Alshich, this is his words. The one who is joyful, avdati kvato. And he's hopeless. Al Ken, he says, Kasher ugad lo leMoshe mipi hagvura, when Moses was told by God, lo ugad lo yotam smechim. Al Ken lo chara po. He was not angry. God told me they sinned. So they sinned. Okay, you know what? Let's figure it out. There's an old Jewish joke that the first man, Adam, the real challenge of Adam was the fact that he did not have a mother. Would he have had a mother? After the story of the tree of knowledge, Mama would say, God, he ate an apple. Never, a boy was hungry. What do you want from him? So he ate from the tree. Look away. But no, Mama, so there's no. So you have to deal with the consequence. The Simcha, the Mechailos. Matter of fact, there's a commentary in the Chumash called Chitzkuni, also from the early commentators. He actually translates, I looked up in the Chumash, he translates Mecholot from the Hebrew word Chalil, which is a flute. And he actually is in the opinion that it was not just dancing. There was Mechalot in Lashon Machol, and there was Mecholot in Lashon Chalilim. There was dancing, and the dancing was also together combined with music. Everybody's excited. We have a new God. We don't have Moses. We can do what we want. That is what that's what happened to Moses. What's the connection to Purim? We are coming to the holiday of Purim. So we find a very interesting question, which is also being discussed by the early commentators of the very same generation. I saw it in at least 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 books who are discussing this question, and they all are from the same era, about the same time, 50 years more, 50 years less. One is actually a book on the Megillah, which is the first ever printed Hebrew book in Israel. Who was the first print in Israel? Anybody knows? The first print shop in Israel was in the city of Shafat. Not Jerusalem, not Tel Aviv, not Yavne. What's Yavne? Why, they have a nice print shop in Yavne these days? Are you from Yavne, maybe? The first printed book is a book called Lekach Tov, a commentary on the Megillah, which was written by a young man, actually. When he wrote the commentary, he was 17 or 18 years old, but he was already then counted as a scholar because his name is being recorded in other responsa of the very same time. His name was Rabbi Yomtov Tza'alon. He was born in 1559, born in Tzfat, 1559. How many years ago, 1559? About 500 years ago. Less. 200, 500, 475 years ago. Rabbi Yomtov Tza'alon. He was a student of the Bet Yosef. He was Rabbi Yosef Karos, one of his disciples. And that was the first book, and he wrote a commentary. By the way, we have it. You don't have to buy it. There is a website called HebrewBooks.org. I don't have this book in my bookcase, but I was looking for this book, and there's a website called HebrewBooks.org that's for free. You can open over 50 to 60,000 Jewish books in Hebrew. And one of the books is this book, which is called Lekach Tov. You put it in Hebrew Lekach Tov, and it takes you to the book. But it's not recorded, it's a copy. All the pages are copied into the book. If you download it, you have the book itself. Small letters, so I had to work on my eyes a little stronger. But I was able to read it. It's written in Hebrew, printed. First print, Lekach Tov. Ah, the first print of Tzfat, and they have it. No, maybe the copy what they used for the Hebrew books, maybe a print from a few years later. They do have in HebrewBooks.org books which are 400 years old, from Venice, from all kinds of places. Copies. They actually took the entire library of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's library and they scanned it into that website, HebrewBooks.org. That's where they have most of the books, actually. On some of them, you can see a stamp of the Rebbe's library. The Rebbe's means it was a library that was collected by the previous Rebbe, and it was going back to many generations with the collection. It was very, very dear to the Rebbe. So he wrote this book, not such a big book. He wrote it as a mishloach manot to his father. You know, on Purim, you have to send mishloach manot, a gift of food to a friend. So maybe he didn't consider food to be so important. For him, learning was food. So you said, you know what, I'm writing a book, commentary on the Megillah. That is going to be a gift, mishloach manot, to my father. 50 years later, in the same city of Tzfat, lived another man, great rabbi. His name was Reb Shlomo Elkabetz. And we all know him. We all have a connection with him. What's our connection to Shlomo Elkabetz? We sing every Friday night a song that he composed in honor of Shabbat. Lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat. This is, if you take a look on the opening letters of that song, you're going to see his name, Shlomo Elkabetz. He was also from the Gvardia of the Arizal and the Alshich, and a good group over there, a good group of people. So he has a book, and he also wrote, but he wrote a big book. This book I have, I used to have it here. The shelf is empty, it's in my house now. I mean, the book is from my wife's grandmother. It's the wife, I took it from there. And it's called Manot HaLevi. He was a Levi. So Mishloach Manot, he called it Manot HaLevi, the Manot of the Levi. He actually wrote a big book of commentary on the Megillah, also as Mishloach Manot to his father-in-law, in appreciation for giving him such a nice daughter. No, sometimes he can have a son-in-law which appreciates his father. Happens. They say also a joke about Adam. How many years did Adam live? Huh? How did he live so long? No in-laws. Exactly. Anyway, so the Bolt asked this question, the Yom Tov Tzahalon, 475 years ago in his book, and the what's it called, Shlomo Elkabetz in his book, Manot HaLevi. And then I saw it also in a book written Yedei Moshe, a book which was also printed about 450 years ago, by a rabbi in Greece with the last name of Almaslino. Exactly. We used to have a community member. His parents still live here, Almaslino, and he wrote a book. He was originally from Spain, Almaslino. What is the question they all discussed? Very simple question, but they are asking the question. It says, we read the Megillah, and there's a description of every detail what took place at the feast of Achashverosh. It's a 180 days banquet. So it talks about the sofas they were sitting, what material it was made. Okay? It speaks about the gardens, Bechatzar Ginat Bitan Melech, in the gardens. You can imagine the good aroma which took place in those gardens. It speaks about wall curtains made of different colors, tchelet, achud, vechebli, butz, v'agaman. Descriptions of all kinds of delicate materials. It speaks about the feast. V'ashtiya, kadat, en ones. Everybody was able to drink and to feast as much as he wanted. There was no enforcement. Kirtzon ish va'ish. Achashverosh said, you want to have gefilte fish? Have gefilte fish. Moroccan fish? Moroccan fish. Chilbe, should be chilbe. Shakshuka, basbousa, everything you wanted, whatever theme, jachnun, whatever, you Yemenite, whatever you are, and whatever type of community you present, and from wherever you come from, and whatever delicacies you like, everything is going to be dedicated for every person according to his needs. Gewaldig. Kosher, 100% kosher. You don't want kosher, you can get 100% not kosher. You want, it says kirtzon ish ve'ish. The Megillah says, what is ish ve'ish? Like the will of every man. But the Megillah says, ish is Mordechai. It says on Mordechai in the Megillah, ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan HaBirah. So ish is referred to Mordechai. And ish is also referred to Haman because it says ish tzar ve'oyev, Haman arazeh. So if you want to be a Hamanite, get a Hamanite dish. You want to have a Mordechai, get a Mordechai dish. Whatever you like. So everything is there. And there is actually verses which go on and describe how great it was. So they're all asking the question. Rabbi Yontov Tzahalon, Reb Shlomo El-Kabitz, and Rabbi Amasnino from Greece. What are they asking? No, I'm talking about food, not sushi. So what are they asking? They're asking a question. The question, it's a question which begs itself when you read these verses. What many people don't think about it, including myself, until I saw it in the book. The question is, you're telling me about everything, but you're missing there. What are you missing? Oh, you see, you have to be Shlomo El-Kavitz to ask a question like that. You're missing the music. No mentioning about music. What type of music? Who was the band? Who was the band? Who was the singer? Was it the Beatles? Was it who? No, I don't know. You tell me. Who was? Who? There is no mentioning at all about music. No discussion, no consideration, as if taboo. You can imagine a 180-day party with no music? Impossible. Can you imagine a wedding, 3 hours wedding without music? I actually had a very good story last week. By divine providence, by kind of by coincidence, I was looking for an insight by some rabbi, and it led me to another rabbi. And I saw he started speaking, said, I have a story. So I said, you know what, it's 3 minutes, I'm going to listen to it. You know, it goes sometimes on the... So he said it's a true story. This is just by the way. He says a story. There was a wedding in Israel. I believe it was in Ashdod. The groom, bride, family are arriving on the hall. The caterer is there, all arrangement, but lo and behold, there's no music. They make a call, they call up the guy, they say, Ma pito, matoy, when did we make up? I don't see your name on my booklet, you know. I don't have to tell you. The guy is excusing himself. You never called me, we never made it up. Yeah, we spoke about it, but it's not in my diary. No music. And they're all freaking out. no music. The Chatan, real, sincere, gentle individual says, guys, let's not worry about it. Let's calm down. Whatever God does is for the best. I believe that's by divine providence. Akoli ever said. Lolidot. No, what should we do? But he calmed. Chatan wants to be calm. He believes that it's all in God's hands. Everybody is calming down slowly. And they think how they're going to sing. You're going to lose your voice. You sing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You know, I'm doing it once in a while. Simchas Torah, Shabbat. It's not easy to sing without music. Then somebody came with an idea. In Israel today, they have some halls, wedding halls, which are split halls. You walk into the same entry as the same, what's it called, the same lobby, but family A to the right. Family B has a wedding to the, sometimes they even have 2 floors of weddings, right? In Abraham, in Jerusalem, Ashdod. I was by such a wedding last summer. My uncle, I was in Israel. My father took me to a wedding of one of my cousins, second cousin, and there was 2 or 3 weddings playing in Ashdod, like outside of the city. And there's like lights, family this, family Farkash, and you come into the same lobby and you split. So someone came with a good idea. They asked the musicians of the whole second wedding if they can take a wire to channel it into the microphones of the hall, which the music is not there, so that at least they're able to dance and enjoy the music coming from the sound, coming from the hall next door. They agreed, why not, to help another Yid. And it was actually a very nice wedding. There was music, and they heard the music, and they were dancing with the music. Everybody was happy. The Chatan is there. The one who did not force to have music is very excited. The friends are dancing, the family. At that point, in the second hall, the rabbi of the Chatan came in to celebrate and to join the wedding of his student. So when the rabbi came in, the music started playing a special welcoming song. It goes, Yamim al yemei melech tosif notav kemo dor vador. It's like a blessing of praise for the great rabbi. And everybody's dancing loudly. The music is very excited. Happens to be at that very same moment in the other wedding, the Chatan just held the hands of his great uncle. This is the uncle who doesn't have a wife, doesn't have kids, but he comes to all the family smachot. He's a widower. They come to his smachot, and happens to be at that moment when the song started displaying for that rabbi there, the music started. That's what they heard in the sound, and the Chatan is dancing, and all the participants around, their friends are dancing around them. Yamim al yemei melech. Very excited. At the end of the wedding, the great uncle comes over to the Chatan with an envelope, and he says, look, I go to all the weddings, and all your cousins, everybody gets the same amount of money as a Chatan gift. But the way you dance in my honor, the song you sang for me as if I was the great rabbi and the great head of the yeshiva, I'm giving you much more than any of your cousins got. And the Chatan turns to his friend and he says, didn't I tell you whatever God does is for the good? Anyway, so what happened to the music? This is the question all these great rabbis are asking. And they go basically in the same direction. Interesting, even though they were different rabbis, some of them in different areas, they come with the same concept. And they all explain it a little differently. But the idea is basically the same, which is very, very interesting. First of all, one of them writes it practically. I don't remember if it's the rabbi of Greece. I think so. He says, Harry wanted to make sure that everybody is happy. So he said, when it comes to food or drinks, so let's say if you display wafers on this table, you don't like wafers, or you do. Somebody here does not like wafers, but I don't think it bothers them that I like a wafer. He doesn't eat, and I eat. You put a chicken, sometimes people bring sushi to the table. I don't like sushi. But I wouldn't be bothered if somebody else likes sushi. Let them enjoy the sushi, and I will stick to my herring. Let everybody eat whatever works for them. I have no problem seeing Jews eating Moroccan fish. Let me eat Maggie filter fish, and I hope he doesn't have a problem if they see me eating Maggie filter fish. That's what happens to food. That's what happens to drinks. That's what happens to scenery. I don't have to, I wouldn't impact my personal enjoyment if it's not my taste or not my look. But what happens, says Rabbi Al-Maslino, what happens if the music is clapping and the song is something that you don't want to hear? It annoys you to your brain. There's no escape. You're stuck there at a party. So then you're not happy. Music is the one thing that once the noise arrives, you're not happy, you're not happy. And Achashverosh wanted to make sure that everybody's happy all the time. So you had to cancel the music. You can't have music when people are not happy. Okay, avoid. Fine. A good answer. But they all go with another direction even further. And they say as follows: music is not just a physical enjoyment, not only a mental indulgence. Music relates very much to the soul. We all know that when we talk about the angels' service to God, it speaks about song. Right? Beshira ubezimra umevarchim. We say in our prayers with song, with jubilation. That's how they talk. There's Farkash Shira. That's what angels do. That's why it actually says, they write it. The Shlomo El-Kabitz writes it, that a baby, after birth, if you want to calm him down, you sing to them. You can talk for him today, tomorrow, it's not going to help. If you sing to the baby, you're going to help the baby calm. You know why, he says? Because the baby's soul just arrived from heaven a few weeks ago. And very close language they can relate to it, what they heard in heaven, the song of the angels. So when they hear that, they feel themselves back, where they came from, and it calms them. Says Reb Shlomo El-Kabitz as follows: said Achashverosh, this whole feast had an agenda. What was the agenda? To assimilate. Clearly. The whole idea was to take the Jews who were exiled just 70 years ago from Israel and to integrate them into the society of Persia and to invite them to the banquet and make sure that they feel at home. So slowly but surely they become part of the citizens of Persia like everybody else, not sticking out as Jews. That was his idea. That was the agenda. That was the whole party. He even displayed, the Talmud said, he displayed vessels of the temple at the banquet, things that his grandfather brought from Israel after the destruction of the first temple. Some say he even put on the priestly garments, which we read about it last week. He put them on, the Gemara said. He's assimilating them. And he wants to make sure that they are slowly getting into the program. What was his concern, said Reb Shlomo El-Kabitz? The moment you're going to start playing music, yes, you're going to start off with some treif music. You're going to start off with some, not Jewish music. Fine. But you know how it goes. Then people start asking for songs. One song leads to another song. The next thing you know, they're singing the song that they sang for their grandfather's Shabbos table. And then one guy starts singing, let's dance Avanagila, and let's dance something in Yiddish. And they were also, like I said, they were close to the temple times, less than 70 years. So they had songs coming from the temple, the Levites. And what happens when they all get involved in a good neshama song, which they call a Hasidic melody, and slowly but surely they will say, what are we doing here? We don't belong at this banquet. This is not where we should be. This is a Achashverosh. Let's get the heck out of here. And it was all over. So Achashverosh, the wicked Achashverosh, knowing what is going to go against his agenda, what does he do? Cancels the music. No music at my party. Just for the safek, for the concern, for the doubt, what music can do. He said I would rather have a 108-day party with no music and as difficult it is to have a party without music, but making sure that their soul doesn't get ignited, their heart doesn't get inspired. I can't let there be music. I saw this question, saw this answer. I was reading about what the Sforno, the Alshich, explained about the dancing and the music which was around the golden calf. So the following dawned on me. We could take it a little further. The Medrash tells us we have a song in Tehillim. King David says, Al Naharot Bavel Sham Yashavnu. They were sitting at the rivers of Babylonia. Al Aravim Betocha Talinu Kinorotenu. We hung our kinorot, our harps, on the willows, on the branches of the willows. Kisham Sha'alunu Shoveinu Divrei Shir. Those who captured us, those Hamas guys of Babel, asked us to sing. Ech nashir et shir Hashem al admat nechar. How can we sing God's song on a foreign soil? They did not want to sing, but they could have been forced to sing, says the Medrash. And the Medrash bases it on the fact that later when Ezra came to Israel and they couldn't find proper Levites, when they came for the second temple. And the Medrash says, why couldn't they find proper Levites? Because the Levites who were there in Babylonia and were asked to sing and to display with their instruments what they did in the temple had chopped up their fingers. Which finger they use for the harp? Whatever the finger, the main finger which is being used for harp, they actually cut themselves off those fingers so they could not be forced to display music for those bastards, for those Babylonians. Okay, that's it, and that's why they became blemished Levites. That later, when Ezra brought them back to Israel, they couldn't serve it because they had a physical blemish, which disqualifies them from their service. So this is the famous medrash, and that's what the harps were hanging, as King David says, not singing. Achashverosh heard about it. Crosby, it was in the news that the Jews are not singing. So Achashverosh knew if I'm inviting them to a banquet, once I'm going to display music and maybe they're going to feel they're going to be asked to sing, again, what's going to happen? They are getting out. There's one thing which they are holding strong is not to display music after the destruction of the temple in front of them, making it, man, not for what this is. We're not giving it in, not giving into it. So what's the message here? When the golden calf was worshipped, what was the main concern that Moses had when he saw the golden calf? That he displayed his anger, thinking that they might actually going to lose it. What part of it was? The dancing and the music. Remember Cholot came 1,000 years later and Purim. What stood for the Jews that they deserved that miracle to be saved from Haman's hands? The very fact that whatever they were, and don't think they were all so great, by the way. They had big issues, those Jews who ended up in Babylonia. Big issues. But yet, no music. Not going to that. No dancing. I'm going to eat with you. I'm going to drink with you. But if you think I'm going to sing and dance with you, think something else. Why not? Because that's where you express You know, sometimes you meet people that they're looking to anger God. Sometimes you meet people that they're just looking to satisfy themselves. They have nothing against God, but you know, it's not easy for them with Shabbat, with kosher. They're doing it for, you know, it's cheaper to buy maybe treif meat, or it's easier to get into a taco, whatever, schmacko, and buy yourself something for $1.50. It's easier. You're not looking to anger. How do you know which Jew is what? You watch them. So you see, does he do it with pleasure? Or he does it and then he feels like, you know, why did I do it? I couldn't control myself. Am I so weak? And that's the difference. Are you singing? Are you dancing with your with demonstrating joy and gladness in the way the life you choose? Or listen, my limitations, I'm here, my wife, my husband, my children, we all have these excuses, but in your heart, you know, I'm not dancing with that. I'm not happy with that. Comes the holiday of Purim, Baruch Hashem. Now we can sing and dance, but now we are celebrating the love that God showed us, giving us the miracle. Now we're already after all these discussions. We after the golden calf, God forgave us. And we were after the Purim miracle that God forgave us. We see that Baruch Hashem, we have a loving Father in heaven, and that's why we are getting together tomorrow night. Everybody should come to hear the Megillah, to celebrate the miracle, and then on Friday again. And that's why you have a Purim feast, and that's why you have Mishloach Manot and gifts to the poor. All a part of the celebration of the Simcha that we display in realizing that God takes care of us. So this is the story of Purim, Parsha, getting into an hectic weekend, Bezrat Hashem, with good simcha and joy, Ad Lo Yada. You get out of your limitations, make sure you're here. And again, I want to give a bracha for Shai, the memory of his mother, Alea Shalom. Again, Chagit Khatun, Bad Rechani, Mir Neshama. Rest in peace and be a good source of inspiration for your son, for the children, for the entire family, friends, all married simchas from the coming of Mashiach. So I think we don't have a minyan. I think I was hoping to have. So there's those who want to join us from Ma'ariv. I'm going to daven Arvit inside the shul, and wishing you all Purim Sameach, everybody. חג פורים, חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות רשנים, שמחה וריקודים, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, והרשנים. חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות רשנים, שמחה וריקודים, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, אבל הרישה רש רש רש, והרשנים. Happy Purim, everybody. Happy Purim. See you tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. Laila Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome.
Thank
See you
you.
tomorrow night.